What if the sitcom stars who once felt like family were living lives far more complicated than anyone ever imagined? The laughter was real, but so were the secrets carefully hidden behind the spotlight. For many longtime viewers, it's unsettling to realize how much had to stay unspoken in a very different Hollywood era. Careers, reputations, even entire identities were often protected at all costs. This video pulls back the curtain to reveal the quiet pressures and untold realities those beloved actors faced. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover hidden clues, forgotten whispers, and one shocking truth that could change the way you remember classic television forever. Rock Hudson wasn't just a major Hollywood star. He helped define the ideal image of American masculinity in the mid-20th century: tall, handsome, and effortlessly charming. He became one of the most recognizable romantic leads of his era, especially through his on-screen partnerships with actresses like Doris Day and Elizabeth Taylor. Together, they embodied a style of wholesome, traditional romance that deeply resonated with audiences at the time. Yet behind that polished image was a very different reality. Studio executives were aware of Hudson's private life and feared the potential scandal. To protect his career and public persona, they arranged a brief marriage between him and his agent's secretary, hoping to silence rumors. The marriage lasted about 3 years before ending quietly, without public attention. Throughout his career, Hudson maintained relationships with men, living with the constant fear that his secret might be exposed. While close friends and colleagues often knew the truth, the general public remained unaware. That changed in 1984 when Hudson publicly disclosed that he had AIDS, making him one of the first major Hollywood figures associated with the disease. He passed away in 1985, but his story had already made a lasting impact. It forced Hollywood, and much of America, to confront long-standing assumptions and prejudices. The man who once symbolized idealized heterosexual romance ultimately became a powerful human face of a community that had long been overlooked and marginalized. Liberace built a career unlike anyone else in American entertainment history, transforming sheer flamboyance into extraordinary success. He wasn't just a pianist. He was a showman who turned every performance into a dazzling spectacle. Draped in rhinestone-studded capes and surrounded by glittering props, he helped define the over-the-top style that later became synonymous with Las Vegas entertainment. Despite an image that many found suggestive, Liberace consistently maintained in public that he was simply a bachelor searching for the right woman. At a time when personal reputation could make or break a career, this carefully managed persona allowed him to remain a beloved figure, especially among his loyal fan base, many of whom were older women who admired his charm and showmanship. In private, however, Liberace had relationships with men, including Scott Thorson, whose later legal case brought significant attention to Liberace's personal life. The lawsuit revealed details about their relationship and raised broader questions about privacy, image, and the pressures faced by public figures in that era. During the mid-1980s, as Liberace's health declined due to AIDS, he publicly attributed his condition to other causes, reflecting the stigma surrounding the illness at the time. He passed away in 1987, and shortly afterward, the true cause of death was confirmed. What makes Liberace's story especially compelling is the complex relationship between performer and audience. Many of his fans seemed less concerned with the contradictions in his public image and more devoted to the joy he brought them. In that sense, he managed to maintain both his carefully crafted persona and his authentic self, at least within the unique space he created on stage. Raymond Burr carefully constructed one of the most elaborate personal narratives in Hollywood history, creating stories about wives and children who, in reality, never existed. For many years, he spoke openly about these supposed family tragedies, presenting a conventional image that aligned with societal expectations of the time. Later, biographers and journalists would reveal that much of this background was entirely fictional. This was not simple dishonesty, but a reflection of the intense pressure and fear that shaped the entertainment industry in mid-20th century America. Privately, Burr shared a long and committed relationship with Robert Benavides that lasted more than 3 decades. In public, however, Benavides was introduced merely as a business associate. Together, they built a successful orchid business, traveled widely, and created a meaningful life, one that largely remained hidden from public view. Burr's role on Perry Mason brought him fame and made him one of television's highest-paid actors. Yet maintaining that success required more than strong performances on screen. It demanded a carefully managed personal image off-screen as well. The stories he told about his private life were not occasional exaggerations, but a fully developed alternate biography he sustained throughout his career. Paul Lynde was remembered as a television icon, known for his campy humor and razor-sharp wit. His frequent appearances on Hollywood squares made him a familiar presence in living rooms across America. Yet, the very qualities that made him so entertaining also placed him in a precarious position during a time when traditional expectations of masculinity were rigid and unforgiving. Although many within the entertainment industry understood who he truly was, Lynde never publicly acknowledged his sexuality. This silence was not accidental, but a careful decision shaped by the realities of his era, when being open could jeopardize a career. On screen, he mastered the art of delivering bold, suggestive humor without crossing the unspoken boundaries that might make audiences uncomfortable. It was a delicate balance he maintained with remarkable skill. Behind the scenes, however, Lynde struggled with personal challenges, including loneliness and issues with alcohol. Friends often described him as someone deeply private, carrying emotional burdens that his quick wit helped conceal. His life became a constant negotiation between public success and private truth. When Lynde passed away suddenly in 1982, tributes focused largely on his comedic brilliance. What remained unspoken was the personal cost of maintaining that silence. His career flourished within certain limits, but those limits were often confining, shaping both his legacy and the life he lived. Tony Randall is best remembered for his role as Felix Unger in The Odd Couple, a character defined by precision, refinement, and a distinctly polished demeanor. His performance was so convincing that, for many viewers, Randall and Felix became almost inseparable. Yet those same qualities also led to decades of speculation about his personal life, rumors he chose not to address publicly. Randall was married twice. His first marriage, to Florence Gibbs, lasted 50 years until her passing. Later in life, he surprised many by marrying Heather Harland, who was 50 years younger, and becoming a father in his 70s. This unexpected chapter reignited public curiosity and debate. Some industry observers questioned whether his marriages reflected genuine personal choices or were shaped by a desire for privacy, though no clear answers ever emerged. With his love of opera, strong theatrical background, and cultured presence, Randall often fit into narrow social assumptions, regardless of the truth. He remained deeply committed to his craft and consistently avoided discussing his private life, even in relaxed interviews. Friends described him as disciplined and intensely private, someone who kept clear boundaries between his public and personal worlds. When Randall passed away in 2004, speculation still lingered, even in obituaries. His story reflects the challenges faced by performers whose personalities didn't align with traditional expectations and how public assumptions can sometimes outlast the individual. Cesar Romero was a master of Hollywood paradox. On screen, he was unforgettable as the flamboyant, cackling Joker in the 1960s Batman series, yet off-screen, he was perpetually cast in the public imagination as the suave, unattached Latin lover. This carefully cultivated image made him a perennial eligible bachelor, always charming and present at premieres with actresses on his arm, but never committing to anyone in a lasting romantic relationship. Romero knew how to navigate the pressures of Golden Age Hollywood, where marriage was often expected and personal discretion was a requirement for career longevity. By refusing to marry, he sent a subtle signal to the industry while maintaining an air of availability for public appearances. His charm, wit, and meticulous control over his public persona allowed him to walk the line between curiosity and respectability, ensuring that audiences adored him while remaining largely unaware of his private life. Even industry insiders recognized the pattern at private events and parties, but Romero's skill at managing appearances meant the press and public rarely connected the dots. When he passed away in 1994, tributes focused almost entirely on his prolific career and iconic roles, leaving his personal life mostly unexamined, a continuation of the careful game he had mastered for decades. Romero's story remains a vivid example of how actors of his era balanced image, privacy, and fame, and how Hollywood itself often prioritized persona over personal truth. Dick Sargent is best known for taking over the role of Darren Stevens on the popular television series Bewitched, stepping into a part originally made famous by Dick York. While he found professional success and became a familiar face to millions of viewers, his personal life was shaped by the pressures of an udyog that often demanded strict conformity, leaving little room for openness about one's identity. For many years, Sargent kept his private life out of the spotlight, aware that being open could jeopardize his career. However, in 1991, he made the courageous decision to publicly come out as gay, an act that was still rare and risky for actors of his generation, especially those with established television careers. His announcement marked a turning point, both personally and culturally. Following this, Sargent became an advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and worked to raise awareness about AIDS during a time when misinformation and stigma were widespread. He used his public recognition not just to entertain, but to inform and support others facing similar challenges. When Sargent passed away in 1994 from prostate cancer, he was remembered not only for his contributions to television, but also for his honesty and advocacy in his later years. His story stands as a reminder that embracing one's truth can have a meaningful impact even after decades of silence. Rory Calhoun built his career playing rugged, strong-willed characters in Western films and television, most notably in The Texan. His on-screen persona reflected a classic image of American masculinity, confident, tough, and self-reliant, an image that seemed steady and unquestioned during his rise to fame. Yet behind that carefully crafted exterior was a man living with the constant pressure of protecting his private life. During Hollywood's golden age of Westerns, actors like Calhoun were expected to embody a very narrow definition of manhood. Any hint of deviation could threaten not only an individual career, but also the financial success of entire productions. As a result, Calhoun kept his personal relationships extremely private, navigating an environment where exposure could have serious consequences. Publications such as Confidential magazine actively sought out scandals, turning personal lives into profitable headlines, while studios often relied on fixers to contain damaging stories. The cultural importance of the Western genre made its stars especially vulnerable. They were seen as symbols of national identity, leaving little room for personal complexity or difference. Despite ongoing rumors, Calhoun managed to sustain a long career, though those close to him later described the emotional toll of maintaining such strict secrecy. When more details about his personal life surfaced after his death in 1999, they offered a fuller picture of a man who had spent decades balancing public expectations with private realities. His story highlights the quiet strain faced by many performers of his era, whose lives were shaped as much by fear of exposure as by professional ambition. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.